All right, this is Kurt Russell with the Open Mat and Everything Penn State, and we missed a week last week, and I'm here with Tim Owen from Blue and White Illustrated. How you doing, Tim?
Good, Kurt. Glad to be back. How was the break?
Good. Enjoying your new year?
Yeah, it was fun. I don't think I had as much fun as Penn State did the Southern Scuffle, but
I'm
glad to be part of the new year.
Yeah, they did pretty well at the Scuffle there. Any particular notes of things that stand out the most to you there?
Just kind of skimming through the results here. I think overall they actually fared a little bit better than I expected. Even I had a feeling they were going to go down there and be the favorites and should win, but outscored Minnesota, who finished in second place, 4 points. I think that's pretty impressive for this point in the season, especially they didn't have their starter 133, which is now Frank Bartolotti, and 141 was still up in the air at that point because Sam Sherlock had just been dismissed from the team. So that going down there and being able to put up a 14-point win over top of second place Minnesota like that's a good stepping stone for this point of the season, because you remember last year this team full of young guys went down to the Southern Scuffle as just a team full of potential and top recruits, and they left the Southern Scuffle the top teams in the country, and obviously went on to win the national championship. So I think that this year was another good indicator to prove to the rest of the country that even though that Minnesota dual meet loss at the beginning of the season happened, they're still back up in the top 3 teams in the country, and really proved that down in Chattanooga with that dominating performance. Quentin Wright, you have to give him props for turning it on. He had a really good tournament. On there, obviously, David Taylor, Ed Ruth, they had great tournaments. Even Matt Brown at 174 had a great tournament. He met Ed Ruth in the finals. And also, you have to give it to Dylan Alton, who had a great tournament too, and actually wrestled Kyle Bacon, 2-time national champion, really well in the finals. And same with Volrath. Volrath met Bacon in the semifinals and actually put up quite a fight. All in all, it was a tournament for all 15 guys that went down to Chattanooga over the New Year's weekend there. And coming back with the title, just had sugar on top. How about you? Did you see anything good from down there?
Well, I did think that Mega Ludus would do better than the 6th seed, and he did, and I was impressed with his win over number 9 Snyder, and then he did a little bit better against Pirelli the second time around. Frank, I think, kind of put an exclamation point, by majoring Dylan Ness there. That was really good to see out of him. I have to agree with you about, Dylan's match against Dake, but I think most people agree that Dake is probably a little bit more in the Quentin Wright mold, where come March is when he turns it on. So I'll wait to see, judge a little bit later about a 3-point loss to the number 1 guy for Dylan, but I still was impressed with what he did. David Taylor just rolled through everybody. You had to really love Matt Brown, putting on a good showing, beating the number 7 and number 11 guys, and just putting on a good show there.
And he also gave Ed Ruth his closest match since he lost in the national quarterfinals last year, I believe. Yeah. Definitely since last postseason, Ed hasn't had a 3-point match like that. So, that goes to show that Matt Brown is one of the top 10 174 pounders in the country, if not maybe even top 5. He really has that type of potential, and Cal even mentioned that he's just so good for the team to have around. They bring him on road trips even when he's probably not even going to be wrestling, just because just the support that he offers the entire team, and especially Ed Ruth as a working partner. He just kind of keeps the team fresh and keeps Ed with one of the best workout partners in the country. You can't really beat that.
Yeah. And, Ed just rolled through everybody as well. Quentin, we were talking about which Quentin Wright is going to show up, and that looked like Mr. March right there. I mean, beating Bozak by 7 points. pinning Larson, in the first minute there. That's all on the plus side. And the downside, I was a little concerned about, Morgan had a really close match with number 4 Paulus, and then he seemed to kind of fall apart in the semi-console. I don't know whether that was like a mental breakdown, like he was expecting to do a bit better or what. So I'm just going to be watching to see how he kind of rebounds here over the next couple weeks. And then also with Cameron Wade, because, he dominated Clayton Jack last year, and then he lost him by a point. He bounced back to pin, Jeremy Johnson, great. But then he, even though Hankey's a red shirt, I still felt like he should have beat him. So again, it's the kind of inconsistency we're seeing out of Cameron. I hope he starts to get sharp. And I think for the future, Nittany Lion fans had to be impressed with what they saw out of John Gingrich down there as well, getting a 7th place finish.
Yeah, definitely. Gingrich is going to be the guy they're going to turn to next year, and maybe even beyond that once Wade has graduated. He's been having strong showings almost everywhere he goes this year. Even when he's going into the Open tournaments, he's been doing well. And I to make a side note, one of the heavyweights that Cal brought in this year's freshman class, Colin Campbell, he's actually been dismissed from the team as well. So that really just opens it up for John Gingrich next year. It's going to be his weight class, and the more experience he gets this year, especially a experience like a tournament at the Southern Scuffle, that's only going to fare well for him next year. And going to Cameron, it's just consistency. Something that's just been on Cameron since he basically broke into the starting lineup at Penn State. Just going out there and wrestling the same Cameron Wade style each time, and whether it's his opponent or if it's something in his head or if it's weight, it's just that something that Cameron still needs to kind of straighten up before he's going to become an All-American this year. And then you mentioned Luditz as well. He had a great tournament, but 125 is just full of a lot of experienced wrestlers, Pirelli being one of them. Pirelli from Cornell, they met twice, and like you said, Meg Luditz made some improvements for the second time when they met in the consolations, and that's all you can ask for a true freshman, is just build off each performance, especially when you're dealing with a guy like Pirelli. And who knows if they meet again in St. Louis in March, and different result. But as a true freshman, Meg Luditz does still have some room to grow and some learning to do, and he's taken that taking that role on, and he is really accepting the role of still having to learn, still having to grow as a true freshman. But he's doing well, and he'll only continue to do better. And then, as you mentioned, Morgan McIntosh, he's kind of in the same situation there as a true freshman. He just kind of has to adjust to these older, more experienced, stronger wrestlers, and hopefully the mentality doesn't lose that strong mentality that helped him so many years in the past. And as he is having some of these struggles, it's just kind of hard not to wonder if he should have been redshirted this year. But hindsight 2020 now, who else would be at 197 if he wasn't there? So it's just kind of a tough situation there for Morgan. But these struggles will come back to help him in the future, I'm sure.
Well, he's shown that, out of the top 4 guys, he's actually had close matches with 2 of them that he probably could have won. And it reminds me a little bit of what happened last year with Andrew Alton, who had 3 close matches with Callan Russell, a couple of close matches with Montel Marion, Mike Thorne, Jimmy Kennedy. All told, he lost, I think, 7 matches by an average of less than 2 points per match. And all of those guys went on to be All-Americans. And then, he finished losing to a guy he pinned early in the year, and Zach Kemmer, in the round of 12. So I'm seeing sort of a pattern here with Morgan where, I want to be able to see that at least one of the top guys, he finally gets over the hump and beats one of them, I hope.
Yeah, and comparing him to Andrew, that's kind of does fit, because as the season wore on,
Yeah. So on to what Penn State did at Michigan State last week. I actually thought they were going to get a shutout, but the one match everybody's talking about is the Nika Megaludis match where he gets disqualified on an arm throw because the referee deemed it illegal, and then Olenowski couldn't carry on. So did you get a chance to talk to Nico about that at all?
I haven't gotten a chance to talk to him personally, but just hear from some of the guys that were at the match. You know, it's one of those questionable calls that gets called sometimes and gets called up, but it doesn't get called other times. And, you know, from what I've heard Nico say on his show with Jeff Byers, you know, it's something that he's hit before in the past, in high school, and just a move that he's kind of gone to in that position. But, you know, without having seen it personally, I just heard that, like, his opponent's arms got a little too wide, turned into an illegal throw, and, you know, Nico said as soon as he heard the whistle, he knew what he was getting called for. And if that wouldn't have happened, Penn State would have won all 10 of those matches out in Michigan last Sunday, because Nico was winning 8-3, I believe, before that call happened. So right there, that would have been a shutout win against a Big Ten opponent. That would have been a big win. Obviously they're going to beat Michigan State, but to put a goose egg up, that would have been something else.
And you know, also, I was just going to say, also, it wasn't like the Michigan State team last year either. Every single match, you know, you heard that their guys were coming out firing, getting the first shot in, getting the first, one or two takedowns, and then Penn State, bouncing back, but just ending up dominating them anyways.
Yeah, it wasn't a lack of effort on Michigan State part of it, for sure. It's just kind of the talent differential there when you're dealing with, Penn State and Michigan State. But they're improving, and, they have some good high school wrestlers out there that, they're hoping to pull in for next year. So, Michigan State, you can't really judge them based off that dual meet. But, it is an indicator for them. That they're able to go out there and win 9 out of 10, and he arguably could have won 10 out of 10, depending on how you look at it.
Right. So before we go on to this week's matches, you had a chance to talk to Coach Sanderson this week. Anything you want to share with us before you post the whole interview online?
I caught up with Cal after the Southern Scuffle, and he was pleased with his team's performance. Obviously, he was pleased with that some of the older guys were able to get tested. He mentioned Quentin Rice specifically. They were able to get tested with guys that more than likely they'll see in March, and they were able to respond well with that. Obviously we talked about Quentin's performance down there. Molinaro was able to get that major decision over Ness. What he did do in the dual meet, if you can remember, and that was something that Cal knew Molinaro had that potential to get that major decision over Dylan Ness, but you had him go out in the Southern Scuffle finals and actually do it. That really pleased Cal, and you could hear it in his voice that he was happy with the way they performed. One of the things I did catch up with him is 141-pound Sam Sherlock is off the team, as I mentioned earlier. Sounds like it was a tough decision on Cal's part, but Cal said, in the long run, it was probably the best move for both sides. Cal did release Sam to wrestle wherever he wants to. So there's some rumors that he might be going to Clarion. I still have to look into that. He might, he probably is going to be figuring that out sooner rather than later if he isn't already on a roster. But that's one, unfortunate bit of information that he passed along. But then also Frank Marlotti, he didn't wrestle at the Southern Scuffle, which came to my surprise. I thought he was going to be down there. Frank actually himself thought he was going to be wrestling down there, but it was a last-minute decision. Still had to work on some things, they said, and he came back strong against Michigan State for his first match of this year. I believe he pulled out a 2-point victory in the third period, and he's on a track to, if he wrestles well, he could be a national qualifier at 133 this year, given the Big Ten right now. So individual wrestlers, seeing what they can improve on, making sure they are improving from week to week, and so that they're peaking once day 10s roll around in March, and then of course the national championships in St. Louis, because that's always what Cal's focusing on is the March, the postseason. That's what that's what they strive for every day in the practice room.
Right. Well, that kind of also is reflected in some of the rankings out there. For I know some rankings just do dual rankings. Some guys, some like Intermat does tournament and dual, and Penn State in the dual rankings is usually in the top 3 or 4. But I know after the scuffle, I know Intermat put Penn State number 1 in the tournament rankings.
Yeah, and their TPI, the Tournament Power Index, they are number 1, which is based off a very similar formula that the final standings of the NCAA tournament in March is based off on. So if you're looking for an indicator on who's going to be the number 1, number 2, number 3 teams in the end of the year, the TPI, TPI is one of the only polls that actually kind of take that into consideration. A lot of your other polls are based on, like you said, based off dual meet performances. So you're still seeing Penn State ranked 3 or 4, depending on who you look at. And that's fair when you're a dual meet team, because they're lost to Minnesota, and they have that tough Iowa meet coming up here, and I think it's January 22nd, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's going to be another tough dual meet. That looking at it from right now, I'm not sure if Penn State is favored in that dual meet. So that when you're looking at the NWCA rankings, which pretty tough dual meet, that's when they're 3 or 4. But looking at it at a tournament level, at the TPI from Intermat, right now Penn State's sitting pretty at number 1, because that performance of the Southern Scuffle really pushed them up there. That they might only have 8 guys right now who would hypothetically qualify for the tournament, but they have 4 or 5 guys who have a very good chance of making the finals. So that's good for them right now. This point of the season.
Yeah, so exactly. All right, looking at tomorrow night. On paper, it looks like Northwestern might provide a pretty good challenge there, but when you kind of match them up against Penn State, and you kind of look at also their last 2 duels where they apparently wildly underperformed against Michigan, getting their butt kicked there, but then rebounded to just dominate, Wisconsin. You also kind of wonder who which version of the Wildcats are going to show up. But right now, to me, it looks like the 2 matches that Wisconsin will definitely win are 125 and 157. Well, maybe not definitely, but they're favored.
Northwestern or Wisconsin?
No, we're talking Northwestern. Did I say Wisconsin? Sorry.
Yeah, 125, 157 are the ones that you're really going to keep an eye out on. 141 could also be a toss-up depending on who Northwestern sends out there, and also depending on which Brian Pierce shows up. Consistency has been something that he's been dealing with a little bit. He's been showing up big time in some matches, pulling out some pins out of nowhere. But then, some of these tournaments he's gone out there and hasn't done so well. So 141 is another one that you're going to keep an eye on. At 125, Meg Lewis has the potential to win this match, but I believe this guy from Northwestern has already had 20 wins on the season, and he's an experienced wrestler that is going to give Meg Lewis definitely a test at 125. And then 157 is going to be a good match to watch. That's from looking at just these matchups, that's the match to watch during this dual meet tomorrow night. Welch is just one of the funkiest wrestlers of this weight class, and he's just a pure athlete, and he doesn't come across as to be one of your tough, hard-nosed wrestlers, but once he gets out there, he can put up points, and he's hard to score on, and he can just put himself in some really different situations that you don't want to see all the time from 157-pounders. So that's going to be a good experience for all of them to go out there and see something new. And if he can pull off a win against Welch, that's a big win for this point in the season.
Yeah, they'll bode very well for him.
Yeah, definitely.
I probably, but I would also say that 174 is definitely with Lee Munster. He just came off of winning the Midlands as a redshirt freshman. He's a pretty strong kid. He's won a lot of championships in Illinois, so he's definitely going to give, I think, Ed Ruth another close, tough match right there. I don't think it's going to be a bonus at all, like some other people might be thinking.
No, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm actually not very familiar with Munster, but I have heard some great things, and just looking at his record, he's only has 5 losses this year and versus some quality opponents. So I think Ed should have no problem winning this match, but like you, I'm only picking a decision. There's a good chance, though, that Ed catches him in the cradle. If he can turn him, he might be able to pick up a major decision or even a fall. But just looking at these two on paper, I don't think Ed is any more than 2 or 3 points better than him in a normal match. That bodes well for Munster. Munster's going to have quite a career if he can go out there and keep this match in reach going into the third period. That would be a win for Munster.
And then heavyweight kid from Pennsylvania, Mike McMullen. He's been having a pretty good year. He's ranked in the top 20. He had a decent showing at the Midlands, though he did last week at Michigan. He lose to Ben Applin, somebody that Cameron Wade has beat, I think, at least 3 times. So
yeah, Wade usually Applin's number, but with these heavyweights, a lot of these guys are eating on each other. A lot of them are going back and forth, and it's kind of hard to really determine how good this McMullen guy is yet, from what I've seen. But like you said, there's no reason that he couldn't go out there and beat Cameron tomorrow night, especially if, depending on which Cameron Wade shows up. Like we mentioned earlier, consistency has been something that's nagged Cameron not just this year, but the last 2 or 3 years. So depending on which Cameron Wade shows up out in Evanston tomorrow, that's going to play a big part of McMullen, who, like you said, is a Pennsylvania boy from Wyoming Seminary. I think he could actually have a chance to beat Cameron. That's an upset I have marked on this matchup sheet, but I do have Cameron pulling off the decision.
Well, he is
an upset watch.
McMullen's the type of guy who's a little bit more of an athletic type of heavyweight who's kind of giving Cameron trouble. So I definitely have that as a match to watch and pay attention to.
Like a Tony Nelson type of guy.
Yeah, but I still have Penn State winning like 8 matches to 2 in this thing, and and pulling away pretty easily. After Friday, they take the bus up to Madison. I really got to feel bad for Barry Davis up there with, a lot of guys redshirting or other guys transferring or graduating. Northwestern last week just totally hammered them, and I look at their lineup, and the 2 guys that they do have ranked in the top 20 go right into 2 of Penn State number 1's guys. So I honestly see Penn State as a chance of going up to Madison and shutting the Badgers out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird hearing you say that, but it's actually a reality this year. There's a really good chance Penn State's going to win 10 out of these 10 matches, barring any type of disqualification or, anything unforeseen. There is a really good chance that they're going to pull all 10 of these wins. And like you were saying, it's not that Wisconsin, is completely decimated. I mean, they do have some of their best guys redshirting this year. Their 33-pounder and I believe their 65-pounder are both taking Olympic red shirts. So that's two big losses for them. And then, they're young also. And so, and then their 2 main guys, Cole Schmidt at 149 and then Ben Jordan at 165, they fall into Frank Molinaro and David Taylor's weight classes. So, those are almost for sure wins on Penn State's side. And it's just that kind of weird to say that Penn State could actually win 10 out of 10 matches at Wisconsin of all places. But one match I do have marked on here is the 165 match, David Taylor against Ben Jordan. I believe David will win this easily, but they're both St. Paris Graham alum from Ohio, so there's that connection there, and I'm sure they're familiar with each other. I'm not sure if they've ever competed against each other, I definitely don't think they've competed against other collegiate.
Well, you have to remember in high school, David, every year went upperweight. I mean, his freshman year he won at 103. So he's never wrestled Jordan.
Yeah, Ben was a lot bigger. So that would be a little bit of a different match for him. But that's definitely what I'm going to be keeping an eye out on. Other than that, the lighter weights for Penn State, where they've been kind of struggling a little bit this year. I mean, it's not that they've been doing bad. It's just kind of, they're not as deep up at 33 and 41, and that's one of Wisconsin's weaker spots on the lineup. Looking at the roster, 141 guy hasn't even had a win yet this year, and at 33, you have a 5-man record. So Frank Bartolotti should be able to, pick up his second win there, and then you're looking at 125. Nick Maglutis definitely get a win there because this freshman at 125 is 0-2, and he's still a young guy and not as proven as Maglutis, even though he's a freshman as well.
Yeah, and then I think after that, Penn State finally, after all these road matches, are finally going to return back home to Rec Hall, which I'm sure they'll be very, very happy about. They'll be coming back next next Sunday to host Iowa, so we can have a big talk up about everything that happens that weekend.
That's going to be a big weekend. I think people have been looking forward to this match since last year this time when Iowa came in and basically took it to Penn State right in their home Rec Hall. So, I know Penn State had this one marked. They want to, really get revenge on that loss from last year, and then even Iowa, I know a lot of their fans think, their arena is the best arena in college wrestling, which, I can't disagree with that. But I think they like coming into a place like Penn State where it's up and coming and continuing to grow in terms of spectators. And I think they like coming in here and really taking it to Penn State like they did last year. So, there's going to be a lot of animosity there and a lot of pent up emotion, and I think it's going to be a good match to, look forward to. I mean, we're already talking about it almost a week and a half in advance.
Right.
It's definitely one people have marked on the calendar.
So we can preview that more in detail next week. But one last little thing before we close up here. I know you were pretty busy with the magazine and everything. What's the excitement like in Happy Valley getting a new football coach for the first time in 46 years?
Yeah, it's a new excitement, Kurt. Obviously, like you said, it's been almost 5 decades since any type of change like this has happened. So it's new for everyone. The media that covers it, the players on the team, the recruits that are still in high school, the coaches who, had either stuck around. I'm not sure if you heard, but Danny O'Brien, the new head coach, had decided to keep Larry Johnson, the defensive line coach, and Penn State key recruiter, and along with Ron Vanderlyn and the linebackers coach. They're both going to be sticking around, but they're the only 2 coaches that are going to actually be holding over from the last regime. So that's new for they're going to be with a whole bunch of new coaches rather than the steadfast group that they've had since, dating back to the 1980s, 1970s, even back to the 50s when you're dealing with Joe. So, after a lot of continuity and longevity, there's finally some change up here. But it sounds O'Brien's the guy to lead it. He's a, no-nonsense type of guy who has had some great offenses in the past. He's also had some struggles in the past, too. So, it's kind of tough to determine how well he's going to do, but right now he's winning the PR battle. He's saying the right things, and he's also bringing quite a few talented assistant coaches, with a mixture of NFL experience, college experience with national championships at that. He's bringing some coaches who coached at Auburn for their national title last year. The
defensive coordinator. I heard, yeah.
He's bringing in the wide receivers coach from Buffalo Bills, who previously was with LSU when they won their title in 2003. They also have the offensive line coach, Max McWhorter from Texas. Bowl. So he's coming up to coach the O-line, and so that's a lot of good, a lot of different colors, different types of ideas. People who've been around different areas. That's also going to help with recruiting because now you have a presence in Texas, and there's guys who have some Florida connections, which Penn State has kind of been thirsty for the last 5-10 years. They haven't really recruited those states well. So people are anxious for change. People are, for the most part, are welcoming the change. There's a lot of people and some former Penn State lettermen who have really been vocal against Bill O'Brien's hiring, but the fact of the matter is now he's the guy. Now he's the 15th coach in program history, and there's no change in that. And I think now it's that Penn State fans are really just trying to get behind him and get the rest of the fans behind Coach O'Brien, and hoping for the best. And, it's going to be difficult to replace a legend such as Paterno, and then also come into a situation like Penn State football is facing right now, and try to put a good team on the field that's going to compete for Big Ten titles. That's a whole different story. So right now he's doing well, but let's see how it does after a year or two. That's when you're really going to be able to judge what kind of hire this has been.
Well, I'm sure, in case some Penn State football fans don't already, Urban Meyer's at Ohio State, and he's already snagged Noah Spence out from under Penn State, and then he took a guy who was already recruiting, Tommy Shute from Illinois. So I think O'Brien's got his work cut out for him. But have you talked to a lot of Penn State alums and fans, and have you gotten any feedback from them on the hire?
Yeah, we've talked to, like I said, some of the former lettermen, for example, LeVar Arrington and Brandon Short, reached out to Blue White Illustrated's editor, Nate Power. I think it's been almost a week and a half now since they reached out to him. But really vocally just showing their displeasure in the hiring of Coach O'Brien. LeVar Arrington said he would follow Tom Bradley to wherever Tom Bradley goes and support that school over Penn State. And Brandon Short had some words saying that there's a tangible standard that Penn State family holds up to, and Bill O'Brien doesn't know that standard. So there's some former football players, good football players who have shown their displeasure, not necessarily in Tom or in Bill O'Brien as a person, but more so in the administration for going outside the Penn State family and not hiring Tom Bradley. That's kind of what has burnt some of the former players and some of the fans. But the truth is that Penn State was faced with a very difficult decision that they had to go outside the family. They needed to start fresh, and that's what they did without starting completely over, because they were able to keep Larry Johnson and Ron Vander Linden around to kind of help the transition, smooth it out a little bit. So I think this, after a little while, this hire is all going to be determined on wins and losses and graduation rates and academics and all that stuff after about a 2-year period. So people can say all the negative things they want right now, all the positive things they want right now, but really we're going to know in 2 years when if he's winning games or he's at the bottom of the Big Ten. That's how we're going to know. So just kind of give him time. People are being negative as soon as he walks in the door. I think that's just kind of an overreaction. I think they just need to let it play out. So.
Okay, well, good. All right, Tim. Well, that wraps us up for the week. You want to give everybody your website again, where they can come read? You're going to post your interview with Kale, right?
Oh yeah, well that's been posted.
Okay.
We posted that last week. I think that's still up on the message board. I can bring that back up to the top. But yeah, we have a good wrestling board at bwi.rivals.com, or you can go to bluewhiteillustrated.com as well. And join us in the wrestling room, the message board. We usually have about anywhere from 50 to 100 guys in there. Sometimes some Iowa fans in there talking. Especially with an Iowa match coming up this week, I'm sure we'll have a few more Iowa guys in there getting ready for this upcoming match. But also on Twitter, if you follow me at Tim_Owen BWI, as in Blue White Illustrated, and then I'm always tweeting updates
Sounds good. All right, Tim, thanks again for your time. We'll talk to you next week. We'll do a whole big Iowa preview for everybody.
Sounds good, Kurt. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. Talk to you later.